morning and a very happy Thanksgiving to everybody. I know some folks might not be so happy with me saying that, but I have to be true to my actual feelings on the subject, and that's what I want to discuss today. This phenomenon, the holiday that Abraham Lincoln instituted in 1863, and the significance of it, and how one should approach it. Now, I want to make something clear in my own hashkafa, and I know a lot of people are going to be very upset at me about this, but this is I guess it's a change in my hashkafa that came about recently. Although I think a lot of people agree with me in their hearts, and they're not. And this is, I'll admit, it's influence that I have from various Rabbanim who I am close with, some of which are my mentors, and some of which Talmidei Yosef Mikulam, that I've learned, from people who I've learned with, who I consider a Talmud Chaver, in a certain sense, a disciple, but on a pure level to a certain extent, and studying, and others who are certainly not my peers, certainly are my own masters as far as Torah study goes. But I, more or less, in general, my hashkafa is right now that, and again, I don't think anybody can really disagree with the centrality of this truth, is that the only things that are binding on all of Klal Yisrael, al pi halacha, are the Tekonos of Chazal and the understandings of Chazal as we had from the Sanhedrin. And anything subsequent to that is opinion. Now, it's worthwhile most of the time, I believe, to follow those opinions. It's worthwhile most of the time to follow Das Torah as we understand it today. At the very least, B'Torah's Minhag. Which I know some people who espouse these views that I'm expressing. I think I'm kind of really finding a middle road between two different extremes in a way, because I do believe that we should generally follow Piskei Halacha that come from Gedolei Yisrael, however, that's when they are properly understanding what they're saying. It happens more often than that big name Gedolei Yisrael poskim, big tzaddikim, erlich people who I respect very highly, are fed wrong information by people who have agendas. And I think if they knew what things were really about, they would come to different conclusions. And so therefore, I respect their opinion, and I feel that if someone is mamish a Talmud of that particular Rav or Rosh Hashiva, hopefully it's a Rosh Hashiva who is also a Rav at some point in their life, so they understand how to interact with people. And that's their Rebbe, and that's who they go to. It's fitting and proper for them to follow that, to follow their Piskei Halacha. However, a person should be aware, when it comes to little minhagim here and there, before Psukei de Zimra, there are, by Hasidim, there's different minhagim, whether to say the 15th Psalm, or to say Yedid Nefesh, or to say both, or to say neither. And I remember reading that the Satmar Rav is Chusi Yigin Lein Al Kli Yisrael Amen. His minhag was to say, I believe, the 15th Psalm, and not Yedid Nefesh, or maybe it was reversed. And his father's minhag was the opposite of his, meaning that was to say one and not the other. His minhag was the opposite of his father's minhag, but his father's minhag was the opposite of his father's minhag, meaning that the Satmar Rav's minhag was the opposite of the Kedushas Yantiv's minhag, and the Kedushas Yantiv's minhag was the opposite of the Yetiv Lev's minhag. So the Satmar Rav basically followed the minhag of his Zayda, the Yetiv Lev. So when they asked Satmar Rav, why aren't you following your father's minhag? So he said, I am, because he went to the opposite of his father's minhag, and so I'm doing the same. Of course, such minhagim are inconsequential. They're nice things to do. They're beautiful things to do. But your Yotzei Psuke de Zimra just saying, Baruch Shamar and Pseachas Yedecha and Yishtabach, and you're good, and you don't even have to say the whole text of Baruch Shamar that we have today. It could be somewhat shorter, and Yishtabach can also be shorter. It's just that we have a minhag to say a little bit more. The Hasidim always want to add a little bit more. Although some Hasidim, they said, no, we want to find out what, the Arizal said that each bracha of Shemona Esrei should have a certain number of words, and so they try to find, which nusach maybe we're saying too much. And of course, each Hasidus, they have their own nusach, and then Yechidim sometimes on their own find what works for them. But the fact of the matter is, Ashkenaz, Sfard, Sfardi are all just as kosher. And really, Me'ikra Adin, if you're saying 19 brachas, those 19 brachas, and they're ending pretty much with Ke'ein, what we say at the end of each bracha, and you talk a little bit about it in the beginning, you're really Yotzei, you couldn't, of course, you're really Yotzei with Havinenu, at least B'di'evid, although, instead of saying 19 brachas, to say 7 brachas. But it's better to say 19 brachas, but you don't have to say the whole thing. Alright, I myself, I say the whole thing, but I recognize what's the halacha, what's not. Certain things that we have are essentially minhagim. The same thing, I say the whole Psuke de Zimra, I try to, and so forth, but I'm aware that you're not obligated to do all of this. Not everything that an Achron says are we bound by, and I think everybody recognizes that. Most of Klal Yisrael, not Hasidish, don't wear a gartel when they daven, even though it seems from Shulchan Aruch it says Tzorech la'azar be'ezer. Though some say maybe historically it was some kind of different type of sash, maybe it didn't go around the waist like a belt, maybe it went over the shoulder or whatever, some kind of a respectful thing. And so Bisman Hazeh, we have different things to be respectful. A tie, a hat and coat, and each community has a different thing. So the Hasidim have a gartel, and a hat and a jacket, but Me'ikra Adin, if you just wear a yarmulke, you could also daven Shemona Esrei. It just says it's the minhag of the, of Chachomim to Latov, to have a tifa of Reish, whether it means a hat or a talus on top. But Me'ikra Adin, you don't have to do it. It's Yotzei davening. And even really Me'ikra Adin, you could daven without a yarmulke on too, and you're not really doing a sin. It's just these things that we do, that we have different minhagim, but there were great tzaddikim. We make these assumptions, and in a way, when we do this, we're almost making it a religion. in some ways, fast ruber like fast, and in some ways, the exact opposite of what we're claiming is what comes about. And that's why I want to discuss Thanksgiving Day. You know, what is this Thanksgiving Day? What is it all about? And many lies have been told to our poskim, and which generated Piskei Halacha against the celebration of Thanksgiving, which are totally uncalled for. And my personal feeling is it is worthwhile, despite what, with all due respect, the many great poskim and great Gedolei Israel, whom I respect very highly, but a lot of what they were told was false. They got false information. And my feeling is it is worthwhile for a Jew to make a Sudas Haidah today, to thank God, to thank Hashem for this great country that we live in. And I don't think that that's a Avodah Zarah to make a Sudas Haidah to thank Hashem for such a special country that we live in, and for all the things that we have in our lives. And if that's what everybody else is doing today, what they're supposed to be doing. But I think, and I remember when I was in high school, the rabbis in yeshiva, I asked specifically, I said, maybe during the Thanksgiving dinner, we should say Mizmor Soda or parts of Modim or something, some liturgy of Thanksgiving, say Psalm 100. And the rabbi said to me in high school, which hurt my feelings really, and all right, I took what he said and I accepted, but now I respectfully disagree. He said, the less religious we make it, the better. And so I'll tell you the truth, I don't usually make a Suda on Thursday of Thanksgiving. What we usually do in our houses, we'll have turkey on Shabbos, just because it's too much for my wife and everything. But my feeling is I respectfully disagree with this rabbi I had in high school, who said, and it's not the famous one, it's one who still works there, and I love him and I respect him. It's not, but I understand he's just basing this on what Moshe said. In one of his, he has at least 3 or 4 tshuvas on Thanksgiving. So in some of the tshuvas he says one thing, in some of the tshuvas he says something else. So, they contradict each other. So he's basing it on the Machmir tshuva. But which I don't think is really being Machmir. I think it's really the opposite in many ways, because he's expressing his opinion. Rav Moshe was a big anav. He was a very humble person, and extremely exceeding Ish Moshe anav mikol adam. He was exceedingly humble person. So I don't think he insisted that the whole Klal Yisrael should follow his psak. I think people made a new religion around these things, posekism in a way. I mean that in a respectful way, but when it goes against common sense. It's common sense that we're supposed to have a Karas HaTov to HaKadosh Baruch Hu at all times. So if the whole country is expected right now to have a Karas HaTov, why should we not have a Karas HaTov? Especially in a great country like America. I can understand in Israel where they're koifrim, where they're spitting on the Torah by the very existence of that country. Why to be porish from there, even if they're doing something good? Meaning, for example, Yom HaShoah. It's a good thing to mourn and to remember the Kedoshim in the Holocaust, from when the European Jewry was exterminated. It's worthwhile for us to remember that, but the time really to do so is on Tisha B'Av, during the 3 weeks, maybe during Sfira, perhaps a little bit, although that is during Sfira. The thing is, in general, the Avelis is not done in Chodesh Nisan. B'derech klal, it's the Avelis is in Chodesh Iyar, but not in Nisan or Sivan. I don't mean haircuts and chasanas, but the real toikif, which is also questionable, the whole idea of the Avelis of Sfira, but it's a minhag that the Klal Yisrael has accepted, and we should do it. I'm not discouraging people from following this minhag, although to take it further than it needs to be, not listening to music, for example, especially recorded music. There are different opinions, and I understand, but people who hang themselves by not. I personally, I don't like to really listen to music that much. Once in a while, I'll go to a concert and I'll enjoy it, but usually music, that's not my thing. My wife is a big music person. She's a musician, everything. She can't live without music. And I tell her time and time again, don't be machmir during Sfira. During the 9 days is something else. Even during the 3 weeks, there's no reason not to listen to music on headphones or in the car by yourself. There's reason not to get up and dance and to music. That and Simcha B'Reim, to have with other people together. That's a different issue. But really, just as much the halacha is you shouldn't listen to music at all. If we're listening to Reb Moshe, for example, about Thanksgiving, you should really never listen to music at all. Reb Moshe's psak is that music is asur all year long, because because we have a veilus for the Beis Hamikdash, and Shulchan Aruch says it's worthwhile for a person to be meitzer v'doyeg al korban Beis Hamikdash, and to say Tikkun Chatzos every night. How many people say Tikkun Chatzos every night? It's there in Shulchan Aruch. Even once a week to say Tikkun Chatzos. How many people do it? Like the Tanya saw already that people weren't saying it every night, so he said at least say Thursday night. That was the minhag of Chassam Sofer and his yeshiva. They would say Tikkun Chatzos Thursday night. How many yeshivas are saying Tikkun Chatzos? Litvish, Hasidish, anything. Who's saying Tikkun Chatzos? Yechidim are saying it. And in fact, the matter is, then you don't have to say Tikkun Chatzos. It's a pious practice. It's not a And like Rav Victor Miller suggested, so just say one pasuk, Mishkachei Yerushalayim. That's enough. Before you go to sleep, you sit on the floor for a second, you say Mishkachei Yerushalayim, Tishkach Mini. But the point is that I don't understand how anyone can say that having a Sudas Haidor today is an Isser of Chukas Hagoy, because it's unless they're being misinformed about what this is about. Because really, the pilgrims, when they made their Thanksgiving, which was a one-time event, it wasn't a holiday for all the years, they got the idea from Sukkot. So that's what the vast majority of people say. that's a very common historical idea, is that they got the idea of Thanksgiving either from Sukkot or from Yom Kippur, because really the Puritans, when they would have other types of Thanksgiving days, which would be more like a Yom Kippur than a Sukkot. It wasn't really a Zman Simchasenu as much as it was a day of fasting and prayer. And those same pilgrims, they want to get rid of all the Avodah Zarah in Christianity. They did not celebrate Christmas and Easter. If they celebrate any holidays, usually it would be the Jewish holidays, but in general, they didn't really celebrate any holidays. I don't know what the Congregational Church does today, but that was how it was in the old days. That Christmas was illegal in America for probably over 100 years. I don't think there was really any celebration of Christmas in America until I think the 1850s, thereabout. It wasn't part of the American scene really that much, for the most part. Well, and with that being said, I do agree it's usher to celebrate the pagan holidays like Christmas, Halloween, these type of things. That's of course forbidden for a Jew. But to have a day of Hakaras HaTov, what could be wrong with that? I don't understand. But that's just my opinion. I'm going to talk more about this in another video, but I'm at work now. I am working today, even though it's Thanksgiving. That's because I'm trying to share the celebrations with those who are less fortunate, who are in the hospital. So God bless you. Please like, share, and subscribe. And let's talk more about this. All right.